Everyone, welcome to Daily Revelations. Today we're going to dive into Genesis 19, and if you've been watching my other videos, you know that we're just kind of going through the Bible. I'm taking a biblical theology class and have started this channel, kind of a conversion off of what I've been doing on Facebook for a long time, and just diving into the Word every day. But we're kind of going through the full story. Well, as much as I can share with you in about a 10-minute segment of what I've been reading. So I was in 4 different chapters today in Genesis, but the one that really popped out to me was not the one I was expecting to be talking about today. And God is so interesting when we dig into His Word and really start praying as we're reading and saying, what can I learn from this, God? What do you have to teach me about your character, about how you're working, about your full story, and just how my story integrates with that? What you're calling me to, how you're changing me to be more like you, and just in general, how I need to trust you more. And the one thing that intersected with my story has to do with Lot and his family. And it's not a pretty story, let me tell you. It's the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah for their really awful way of living. And God set out to destroy them. He saved Lot and his family alone. They were the only ones that were even worth saving. And they're the ones who are manipulative that I'm going to talk about today. So God in His mercy saved Lot because Lot was Abraham's nephew. And God knew that Lot really desired to do what was right. Unfortunately, I have never understood everything about Lot's family until today. It made a lot more sense to me. Lot, when given the choice, and this happens earlier in Genesis, he and Abraham decide, we have too much flocks. Too many animals to all share one space. So you need to go one way and I need to go the other. Which do you want to choose? And Lot chooses the prettier land, closer to civilization. And Abraham just takes the other option, which happens to be up in the mountains, kind of away from everything and everybody. And not until I was reading the story today did the thought even cross my mind about why Lot chose that. Well, of course, in my mind, it was like, well, it's a prettier land. It's near people. That's kind of where I would venture to, because I don't like to live in the country. I learned that when I did live in the country. But there's something more that was going on in Lot's family, and it's not discussed. But when you read his story, you understand there is something there, and it is an air of manipulation. And Lot acts much contrary to his character in much of the story, except when these angels come and how much he wishes to protect them over even his own family. And it allows you to see something into his family dynamics that can be very easily overlooked. But having been in situations with people who are extremely manipulative, it made me understand a little bit more what was going on. And most of this boiled down to Lot's wife. And we see that in the one thing that she's mentioned about is she turns around when Sodom and Gomorrah are being destroyed and looks back. That's where her heart is. She was the one who caused a lot of Lot's pain and heartache in his life. And that had to make me think about just how much that affected his choices as her husband in what he did against maybe even his own will, because maybe of her laziness, her foolishness, her desire to have things go her way. And he was at her mercy. And it shows up also in how Lot acts with his daughters. And if you are around people who are manipulative, and anybody who is a parent of a child who is adoptive or foster care will learn very quickly that children very young can be extremely manipulative if they are taught that, and especially if they're forced into situations where they need to be manipulative in order to survive. And Lot's daughters were that way. And unfortunately, it is a generational curse that happens in many families when one parent is manipulative and it passes down to the generations. And we see that later in the story with how Lot's daughters used him to get what they wanted. But I wanted to just focus on that manipulation and how much we think manipulating ourselves, our situations, and others will put us in a better place. Where in essence, they really do the opposite. And I kind of made a list of just the costs of being manipulative and not being open to being vulnerable and allowing relationships to come into our lives that where we don't try to be controlling, but we allow God to take over the control and release those things that are going on between us and other people and situations. When we're manipulative, those relationships focus on mistrust. There is no trust. There's no rest. They're unattached. We will constantly draw to attach to other things because there is no peace within those relationships. There's no bonds that secure us. And security is such an important thing, especially for children, but even as adults, to rest and be secure in our relationships just allows us to be able to focus on other things other than just trying to stay secure and grabbing and grappling with things that we try to control about other people and even how we act towards other people to just try to keep that balance and not, it's like stepping on eggshells all the time. And living like that is extremely uncomfortable. And it's not how we were meant to live. We were meant to live in peaceful unity of grace and giving grace to others and accepting grace. We are all broken people. And no matter how hard we try, we're going to fail. And when we try to control our unfailing and other people's unfailing, it doesn't work. And so there's no deep understanding. Also, all those relationships only stay on the surface. And nothing comes about that is deep and meaningful in those relationships either. It's all about just the games that are going on. And I can't tell you how crazy I've seen some family relationships, and it's so much drama. Because there's nothing else that's deep and meaningful amongst those relationships. The drama is the only thing that keeps them in any way attached to each other, and it's not a good attachment. But fear and anxiety are what drive that. And Lot's family was mixed up in a lot of that. And Genesis 19 gives us a very interesting example of how that's nothing new. It's been going on for a long time. And yet, it's something that God has said, I've overcome. And I'm willing to show you how to live a different way, to get beyond this manipulation, and to learn to love and trust in ways that are different than what you've learned. But we have to allow God to come into those broken places in our lives to heal us first. And after he heals us, then we can go out and share his healing with others. But only first, if we allow him to change us inside, can we change anybody else. It's not about manipulating them. It's about loving them. And we can't love anybody else unless we're loved. And we truly accept that love. And then God allows us to see others through his eyes and love them without desiring to manipulate them, but to love them no matter how they act towards us and whether or not they return the love that we give them in any way. And that's how God loves us. So I hope that's an encouragement for you today. Again, thanks for joining me on Daily Revelations. And every day is an adventure, especially with God. So I'll see you all again tomorrow, and we'll see what he has to share then. Bye, everybody.